Hi, and welcome to Historymakers TV. I'm Matt Prater. Today we're speaking to Teresa Martin, State President of Cherish Life Queensland. Welcome to the show, Teresa.
Thanks, Matt.
Now, we met a few years ago, in particular when I was emceeing a rally right in the middle of Brisbane called, was it the Rally for Life?
That's right.
And I was introduced to Cherish Life Queensland and all these fantastic pro-life organisations. Tell us a little bit about what is Cherish Life Queensland.
All right, Cherish Life Queensland is a non-denominational pro-life organisation. We believe in the intrinsic value of human life from conception right through to natural death. And our two main roles are education, particularly of young people, so they make healthy, wise decisions that lead to happiness and hope instead of heartache. And also we lobby the government to ensure they keep our abortion laws, as they are in Queensland at this point, illegal.
Okay, so for those who don't know what the state of play is in Australia with abortion right now, like I've heard Victoria has some of the toughest, some of the worst abortion laws in the world. What's the state of play around the different states?
That's right, Matt. Sadly, the little babies in Victoria have no protection under the law whatsoever. You can legally abort your baby up to the day of birth. Up to 24 weeks, a woman can just walk in off the street and have an abortion. After 24 weeks, she has to get the permission of two doctors. However, one of those can be the abortionist. The second doctor doesn't need to see nor speak to her, and that second doctor can actually be the anaesthetist.
And Queensland, what's the current state of play in Queensland?
Well, Queensland, it's still illegal, but a judge in his infinite wisdom interpreted the law to say except for the mental and physical well-being of the mother. So considering it's illegal, we do something up of 14,000 abortions in Queensland every year. Now, one abortion is too many, but 14,000 is heartbreaking.
Now, I was really impacted a couple of years ago watching a movie called October Baby, and it's about a young girl who finds out she's adopted, and then finds out the story that her mother was going to abort her. And I won't spoil the movie, but it's just a beautiful story, and bawled my eyes out. But the byline of the movie was "Every life is precious," and it really made me think it's so important for young people to see this movie, because let's face it, a lot of younger girls are probably the ones that make the decisions about abortion more than anyone, and they think, oh, it's going to ruin my life. Oh, I can't give that up for adoption. Oh, it's just easier to get rid of it. They don't realise that it's a life. They don't realise it's a person that God has created. Would you just tell us a little bit about, firstly that movie, how it impacted you, and just the idea that every life is precious. Just share a bit about that, would you?
Every life certainly is precious, and I think one of the things often people say about well-known people such as Steve Jobs from Apple, he was very well known, he was adopted. Now, if his mother had have made a different choice, where would that leave us? And whilst that's very valid using somebody in the public eye, let's look at it right here and now. If right this minute there wasn't all the garbage collectors that we have, if there weren't all the shop assistants that we have, we need to break it down and realise that there are people that we are walking the streets with who, by the grace of God, managed to come into the world. One of them's a dear friend of mine. I had known her. I always get a bit emotional talking about her story. I'd known her for at least a good 10 years before I knew her mother tried to abort her, and she survived to tell the tale. And I just can't even imagine what the world would be without her friendship. Our sons are friends as well, so it sort of goes down the line. So every single life is worth living, every life. And often I think with an unexpected pregnancy, sometimes, even if you don't believe in God, it's God's way of getting your attention. He's saying, what you're doing is not what I created you for. There's a better way to live.
And you and I are also friends with the crew that run the Priceless Life Centre.
Absolutely.
And I mean, what a great organisation where people can ring up and call this hotline. Tell us a bit about their organisation.
Priceless Life, I can't pump them up enough. They're fantastic, the wonderful Helen and Liz and all the other ladies there. They run a phone counselling service for girls who are unexpectedly pregnant. You can bring it for lots of other reasons, but that's the main reason why. And they have just recently opened rooms at Wollongabba there, which is fantastic. So we encourage everybody to get on Google Priceless Life or Pregnancy Help Support. That's the name of their office, and actually get help that way. And all they do is help you see what's truly in your heart, not what your boyfriend's telling you, not what your mother's telling you, but what's truly in your heart in relation to your baby.
Now, I've heard some research in the past about the effects an abortion can have on a mum. Obviously, there's an effect for the child because, you know, you're playing God, you're ending the child's life. But with mothers, there can be long-term physical and mental effects.
Absolutely.
Would you like to just share a bit about that?
One of the things that can happen is they can have triggering events, which will be perhaps the date of the abortion, or maybe the date that the baby was due to be born. It could be, for one lady I know who lives down the coast, for her it's the sound of a vacuum cleaner because it reminds her of the vacuum that was used on her during an abortion. They're just some of the psychological damage ones. On the physical ones, they can rupture the woman's womb. There was sadly a case here in Brisbane where the abortionist protruded through the womb the suction machine, which is about 30 times stronger than your home vacuum cleaner, suctioned onto the lady's fallopian tube, etc. So she's lost that. There's the ongoing issue of mental depression because of that. But I want to bring in here too, just briefly, Matt, the men as well. Abortion emasculates men. What's written in a man's heart is to protect and provide. And when he has failed himself and failed that child and allowed that baby to be aborted, something fractures in his spirit. That's not what he was created for. And the same is happening for the woman. We're created to love and nurture. And when we don't do what's written in our heart, then something fractures within our female spirit as well.
And is there, look, I know you have a strong faith. How did you first get into this kind of ministry? Was it since you were young you decided?
Yeah.
Or was it...
Well, I was very blessed, I suppose. I was brought up in a large family, and that was automatically a validation of human life. I think too, it was interesting, you know, one of the things when we were younger at school, we were taught the question and answer, which I think there's something to be said for question and answers, and it was, why did God make us? God made us because he loves us. He wants us to love and serve him here on earth so we can be happy with him forever in heaven. So even though I didn't know why I was here, I knew somehow in the deepest of my being there was a reason and a purpose. And I remember being 15 and reading a prayer, and it's called the Prayer of Spiritual Adoption, where you spiritually adopt a baby that is being conceived now, and you pray for that baby for 9 months. And that impacted me so much. I remember ripping it out of my church bulletin and sticking it on a bit of cardboard. It was long before photocopiers and all that sort of thing. And I've actually still got that prayer now, and I do say it very regularly. So that was sort of probably the next part of the journey where God just gave me a little tap on the shoulder. And then just as I got older, I took out my own membership for Cherish off Queensland, which back then we were Queensland Right to Life. And then in God's providence, a position was going to speak in the schools. And I started there, and then wisely or otherwise, they voted me in as state president. And I'm so blessed because I get to do a job that I absolutely am passionate about every single day.
Don't go anywhere. There's another amazing guest coming up soon on Historymakers TV.
Now, we should just, you know, share with the viewers about God's grace and forgiveness too. I always get concerned as a pastor whenever we talk about this subject that people will feel condemned or guilty because they have had an abortion or their partner's had an abortion. And, you know, God's love and God's grace just can wash away any sin, anything. Do you just want to share a bit about that?
I definitely do with relation to that. The first thing I want to say is to the pastors, never be frightened to speak about abortion in your church. If you speak about it, you are giving that woman permission to come and talk to you. You're putting the key in the lock of her heart that she doesn't even know is locked. God forgives us anything if we have a truly repentant heart. And I think for the girl to get past that fact, we aren't greater than God. He's greater than us. And our sin isn't greater. He carried that cross for us, each and every one of us. So whether you've had an abortion, whether you've had a baby that you mistreated, whether you've adopted a child, gifted that child to a childless couple, any scenario that you have, God is not too big for that. He will always accept you lovingly back. And that's one of the messages, I suppose. When I was at the March for the Babies in Melbourne, which is in October of every year, it's usually the first or second Saturday. You can Google it, they're on Facebook, etc. We do encourage you to come down and help our southern friends. But the pro-abortion people there were very aggressive and angry this year. And as they were close to us, the one thing I kept whispering in their ear, because you talk under the noise, you don't raise your voice to get over it, I just kept saying, no matter where you are, no matter what you've done, God loves you. Because for them to be wanting babies dead, for them to be championing that cause, what has happened in their hearts? What's gone wrong in their families to cause them to be like that? And maybe they've never felt loved. Maybe they don't know God's out there and he loves them.
And you know, the pro-abortionists, their biggest line is, it's a woman's right.
Yeah.
She owns her body, she can do what she wants with it. What do you say to that?
Well, basically, firstly, my right stops where another person's right starts. And firstly, a male baby is definitely not part of a female body. Both male and female have totally different blood groupings. That DNA incorporates some of the dad's DNA. So we know for a fact on a physical level it's certainly not part of her body. But even if that's the case, if it is a right, her right still stops where that baby's rights begins. And if it's women's right, what about the 50% of babies who are women?
And you would say that a baby's life begins at the point of conception?
Absolutely. The moment that sperm and egg join together and another little creature is created, we know for a fact that irrespective of the age of mum and dad or their financial circumstances or any other excuse put forward, if mum and dad go to bed together and create a child and do absolutely nothing else, in 9 months' time they'll be doing this. It's that simple.
And the Bible verse that we all know so well is, I knew you before I formed you in your mother's womb.
That's it.
And you know, it's the amazing blessing of God's creation. Children are heritage from the Lord, is it?
Oh, absolutely. Psalms, you know? It's what is it? Children are like a arrow full of quiver full of arrows.
Yep, absolutely. Well, you know, having a few kids myself, I just think what you guys do, Cherish Life Queensland, it's just amazing. And standing up for the rights of babies and speaking out for God, even though you do get a lot of flack for it.
That's easy.
I just think it's amazing what you do. I think you're a history maker. God bless you. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks very much, Matt. God bless.
You're on Historymakers TV. We'll have more coming up soon.